Hey there, my name is Coach Christine and this is your Suspension Training 101.
Hey there gang, so today we're going to talk about the TRX trainer, also known as a suspension trainer. So that's the first thing to know is that TRX is a brand and there are other products on the market, other companies that make suspension trainers. So the one that I have today is specifically a TRX, but that doesn't mean that's the one that you have to have or the type that you have to have. They're all really pretty similar. And I'm going to talk about this one that I have right here. There will be subtle adjustments depending on the type of trainer that you're on. But overall, all of this stuff should apply to any suspension training system. So first of all, a suspension training system is designed to create instability. You can also use it to regress and progress exercise. So this is why it's such an awesome tool. So that means you can make your exercises easier with just this tool, or you can make them harder.
So because you can make the exercises harder or easier with the suspension trainer, it's a really valuable tool. And just to give you a little bit of reference, TRX stands for Total Body Resistance Training. And the whole idea behind this is taking body weight specific exercise and bringing it up a notch, giving you some more variety, bringing you to another level. So if you know me, you know that I love body weight exercise. So I find the TRX trainer to be a really great tool in my practice of personal training. I teach group with TRX and I use it a lot. So I'm really excited to show you guys what this is all about. You might have seen one in your gym, or maybe you have one in your house, and if you're that guy who's seen it at your gym and you're thinking like, what is that? What do I even do with that? I'm here to help you use this tool to add some variety to your training. So there are some rules with TRX, and I hate to say rules because I'm the guy that thinks that rules are meant to be broken, but there are some things that you should know when you're using the TRX trainer or the suspension trainer to make your workouts more comfortable, more accessible, and more fun. So we're going to start with understanding the lengths of your trainer. So trainers can be hung from a variety of different places. They can be hung from the ceiling, or they can be hung from a door, they can be hung from a stall bar, they can be hung from a pull-up bar. There's lots and lots of options for where you hang your trainer from. But once the trainer is hung at an appropriate height, you can adjust the length. And you do that through, on this specific model has what's called barrel locks. Sometimes they have ones that are more similar to like a tie-down style locking system. There's different systems of locking out there. Today I'm not going to speak about how to necessarily work the locking system, but I'm going to talk about what the length of the trainer means. So starting with fully lengthened, which should be pretty obvious. Basically that's your trainer completely extended as far down as it'll go. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that in my space, our ceilings are pretty high, and where my TRX trainers are anchored is just a smidge too high. So because of that, fully lengthened is literally maybe like 2 inches shorter than it should be. And that's not a big deal, honestly, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand that. So the point from where your TRX trainer is hung is called the anchor. And this is a really important thing to know. So if I just let my trainer hang right now, straight down from its anchor, is a relative position to me. So I want to make sure that I understand that this is straight down from the anchor. So that'll become important as I start to explain some of the other lengths and positions for exercise. So fully lengthened, these yellow tabs are all the way at the bottom. The barrel locks have been opened and pressed all the way down so that the trainer is as long as it can go. So that's length number 1. Length number 2 is mid-length. So this specific trainer has these little yellow lines on it, and some trainers will have more yellow lines on them to indicate different lengths. But mid-length, I mean, come on, it's the middle, okay? So you're just gonna pull the tab up until your trainer is at mid-length. Again, this is important for specific exercises, so this is why you need to know this. So here's my mid-length point, okay? our next length is going to be fully shortened. So I'm going to open up my barrel locks, I'm going to pull the tabs all the way up to the top. This is called fully shortened. So my tabs are extended all the way to the top. This part of your trainer is called a cradle, okay? And the cradles are hitting me just below the hips, okay? So that is fully shortened. Now our final length is called over shortened. So I'm going to take these little tabs and I'm going to pull them up so that they make dog ears that hang down. This is over shortened, all right? So this is the most short length that you work in with your TRX trainer. So those are your lengths. You've got fully lengthened, mid-length, fully shortened, and over shortened. And those are cues that you'll hear instructors use while they're talking about specific exercises for the TRX trainer. Or if you're working on it on your own, finding exercises off the internet, so on and so forth. So now you know your lengths. Hopefully you have a little bit of understanding of the parts of the trainer, and you know that these are called cradles, all right? So the next thing to know that's really important about TRX training is there are, as I mentioned, some rules. And if you've used a TRX trainer before and didn't really know what you're doing, you may have encountered some of these things. So I'm going to talk about the first one, which is no stopping. So a really interesting thing about the TRX trainer is that your foot position in general, or your body position in relation to the anchor, can make the exercise harder or easier. So I'm going to demonstrate this with an exercise, a inverted row. So for inverted row, I'm going to take my trainer to an over shortened position. So I'm going to make my dog ears. Okay. So for inverted row, I have the option to have my feet straight or my knees bent. So first thing first, I'm going to think about my position relative to the anchor. So right now, I'm directly under the anchor. And this is a pretty hard position, and it makes this exercise pretty intense. But if I take my feet and I walk them away from the anchor, it creates a little bit less resistance. And what the no stopping rule is intended to have you understand, if you're working for time, or if you're working for reps, you don't rest when you're doing TRX during your time or your reps. So if my goal is to do 12 reps, for example, and it starts to get too hard to do the exercise with good form, I don't stop and rest. I just walk my feet away from the anchor, make the exercise a little bit easier, and I keep going. So that's what no stopping is. So now we're going to talk about the no scraping rule. And like I said, this really comes into play. I've seen this most often with, for example, push-up position, or dip is another one that this happens a lot in. So I'm going to grab onto the handles of my TRX trainer. I'm going to remember that my foot position relative to the anchor of the trainer is important. I'm going to set myself up for a push-up type position. So this is a good double example of the no stopping rule, because the more under my anchor I am for push-up, the harder this is. If I walk my feet away from the anchor, it becomes an easier movement. So, no scraping. If you try to do a push-up on the TRX before, you may have noticed, and I need to be a little bit more lengthened here. Technically, push-up is a fully lengthened exercise. I'm going to have, the straps are going to be pretty close to my arm, and if I go straight down from here, it's going to scrape on my arms, and that does not feel good, especially if you're not wearing a long sleeve shirt, which most of us probably aren't when we're exercising. So we just need to make a little modification in our push-up so that our arms go out and around a little bit more, so the strap doesn't scrape on my arm. So in general, if you're doing something with the TRX trainer and you find that it's scraping, you need to make a form adjustment. About is no sagging, and this really comes into play in almost every single suspension training exercise. The reason for that is you may notice as you're using a suspension trainer or a TRX trainer that your core is really coming into play into every exercise. And this should be true for body weight exercise off of the suspension trainer anyways, But a lot of times people really start to feel it when they get onto the suspension trainer because of the instability that this creates. You start getting that wiggle wobble feeling, and all of a sudden you realize that you really need to pay attention to this part of your body so you don't fall over. Now, the no sagging rule can apply, like I said, in almost any type of exercise. So it's really pretty easy to show in inverted row again, and then I'm going to talk about plank position because there is several times when you'll be in plank position on the TRX. So we're going to go back to inverted row. This could be true for push-up, this could be true for fly, this could be true for any number of exercises on the TRX trainer. But I'm going to show you an inverted row. So if this is my inverted row position, oftentimes when I'm teaching this, I tell people they need to maintain an air plank. So it's like a hollow body position in the air. What I don't want to see is your butt sagging down. Okay, so there's a good example of sagging. And I'm going to ask you to engage your pelvis and keep your core engaged during your exercise. Okay, so that's example number one of no sagging. Another example of no sagging could be, for example, in plank position, which you'll come across a lot in TRX exercise. So I'm going to talk about how to get into the suspension trainer on the floor for plank position, which is where a lot of the core specific work happens. Okay, so how to get into a TRX trainer from the floor into a plank position. So I'm going to sit in front of my suspension trainer. I'm going to hold the cradles in my hand like this. We call this stinky socks. So you know how when you pick up a pair of socks, they don't smell so good. And you're like, ooh. So I want you to hold your trainer in the stinky socks position. You're gonna lift one leg, drop the trainer over the top of your sneaker, drop the trainer over the top of your sneaker, and then just roll over. Now I am in my tabletop position, so shoulder over elbow over wrist. My feet are in the trainer, and now I'm going to show you how you pop up into a plank from this position. So first modification from here would be just to extend one leg. Okay, so you can do a lot of plank style training from this position, or I'm going to pop up into full plank. Now, notice how my pelvis is engaged, and I'm in a hollow body position. What I don't want to see is this. This is sagging. This is not. Imagine this is really bad for your back and can get really straining. So make sure when you're in plank position, you're here, tucking that belly button into the spine. Also, my feet are under the anchor. So something that happens a lot of times with a TRX trainer is people are really tempted to push their feet back like this. And for some reason they think this is going to be easier, but it's not, okay? Also, if I pull my feet way forward and I'm way out here, this is going to be harder as well. So being directly under the anchor is your most supported position in a plank. And remember, don't let those hips sag down. Now we're going to talk about no sawing. So the TRX trainer and most suspension trainers have this little slippy guy here, okay? And this allows for a little bit of movement in the trainer, but you should not be sawing back and forth in your exercises. So this is the sawing movement that I'm referring to. So you can see how that could happen in a plank position. If you're unstable, your feet are sawing back and forth. It's not a pulley. The sawing should not be happening. I'm going to demo in the push-up position again because it's an easy one to show. I'm going to shorten my straps just a little bit. Again, push-up is fully lengthened, but just so you can see me and see what I'm doing. So I'm going to be here in my push-up position, and remember my foot position relative to the anchor makes a difference. Now, if I am making this way too hard for myself, sometimes you'll find that people start doing this. This is sawing, and we don't want that to happen. And usually that indicates that you are at a too hard of an angle for yourself. So if I'm really far under the trainer and I don't have enough tension going through both sides and I start flipping like this, I'm going to ask you to step up, find your strong air plank, find equal tension through both sides of the trainer, and then proceed to do your exercise. So that is no sawing. That can happen in hanging rowing movements that can happen when your feet are in the trainer and you're slipping. You want to find a less difficult position for yourself so that you can maintain equal pressure through both of the handles. So the last one we're going to talk about is no slacking. And what no slacking refers to is tension in your training straps. So for all TRX exercise or suspension training exercise, you should have tension in your straps throughout the movement. And oftentimes I'll cue people to be pushing through the handles, pushing the handles away, or squeezing the handles. That will help you maintain tension in your exercise. So I'm going to demonstrate this in an exercise called alligator pull. Most of the time I see slacking and pulling exercises. So let's get set up. I'm going to show you what slacking looks like. So if I'm slacking in an exercise, I'm going to be facing my anchor for alligator pull. I'm going to set myself up at a distance that feels comfortable. If I'm probably at too hard of an angle for myself, I'm going to start finding slacking. So my first movement is to pull myself up. I just sawed, so I already know that I'm at too hard of an angle. And right here is where I see slack happen. Slack, body falls down, I just saw it again, slack, body falls down. So notice how tension is being released from the trainer. Often comes from like a bouncing type of movement too, so I can show you just like in a row position. If I bring my body up and I lose tension, and down, up, lose tension, and down. I'm not in control. So what I want to see is core engaged and having tension throughout the whole movement on the trainer. You should never have slack in your tension as far as the straps go. And it's usually just a form issue. You shouldn't be bouncing. You should be at a level of difficulty that's challenging but doable. The last thing I want to talk about with the TRX trainer is foot position, not just relative to the anchor. So that's the first one we talked about, right? Knowing where your foot position is in general with the anchor. Foot position on your body. So this is another way to regress or progress your exercises. I'm going to go back to inverted row or row because I think this is a nice one to see this in. I'm going to over shorten my trainer. Now I'm thinking about foot position relative to the anchor point. Okay, so I'm facing my anchor and my feet are at about hips distance. This is kind of standard position, but you need to know that if I take my feet more narrow, it makes the exercise a little bit harder. If I take my feet more wide, it makes the exercise a little bit easier. And this can be true for pushing and pulling movements. All right, so say I'm gonna do a push-up type of movement. So I'm going to take my feet here, harder. Okay, take them out, just a little bit easier. So that's another example of how you can play around with foot position to adjust the difficulty of the exercise. The final modification is a staggered foot position. So if I'm doing push-up and I've walked myself out pretty far, I get to a certain point where I'm going to lose tension if I walk out any farther, and I don't want to do that. So I can take one foot in front and I can complete my exercise. I'll lengthen these straps a little bit for this. All right, so from this position, my whole body, except for my left leg, continue to be in that hollow body position. And I can push through and complete the rest of my reps with good form. I can switch legs. I'm really pushing through the handles. My leg is giving me a little bit of assistance, but not a ton. And with that in mind, foot position relative to the anchor still matters. So you walk yourself away or walk yourself closer to the anchor, and that'll change the difficulty of the exercise. So I hope you guys feel a little less intimidated about the suspension trainer and ready to tackle some new and fun movements. I am super excited to teach you all the things you can do with this exciting tool, and let's have some fun.